Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today, and I have a review here for another VHS film that I forgot to review last year. I don't really know why I didn't, but here we are. This is a review for 2023's almost 2-hour-long movie, VHS 85. And two of the directors and writers in here that I really love and enjoy are David Bruckner, who returned for this as well, and also Scott Derrickson, who did things like Sinister, I think. Was it Sinister? Pretty sure he did. But anyway, he did a lot of other good stuff too that I think. I actually like Derrickson more than I like Bruckner. But anyway, a lot of good talents here. The movie is kind of a mess. I don't really know how I feel about it. It, as a project, is trying out some new things, even for the VHS franchise, and it's trying to play with you. I do think there are some creepy things in here, some things that I really enjoyed, whether it be gore, whether it be practical effects, the 80s aesthetic, because of course the title hinting here, it's not like 94 and 99, this one actually takes place during 1985. A lot of these clips and stuff we're seeing are from that, even though some of the technology might not be, because it's not always just straight 1980s found footage, in this case, horror. Some of it is actually trying to do a little bit of sci-fi stuff. One particular segment, which I'll get to, but anyway, VHS 85 starts us off with a David Bruckner wraparound story that's interspersed in between other different shorts in the movie. I don't know what this one's called. I actually don't know what the title of any of these different directors' shorts are called, but it doesn't really matter. The wraparound basically is about a group of scientists who are running experiments on this thing that looks, it might be an alien, we're not really sure, some kind of weird, oddly shaped, human-looking form. It's not like it has a face and stuff, it just looks like the outline of a person that they've placed in a small fake apartment-looking room watching a TV, and it's just kind of watching 24 hours a day, if it can see it all. And they begin to talk about how we as humans would look at this from far away and think it's the shape of a human being, but it actually is us imprinting what we know as ourselves of human beings onto this thing. It's a very Stranger Things type of approach to that. It kind of looks like Vecna, but without a face, like I said. It's kind of cool. But anyway, I really love this short. I think it might be my favorite from the entire movie, even though the ending, which is obviously right before the credits of the movie, at the very end, at the very last portion of the movie you get to see, that part is so stupid that I don't know how I feel about it. But overall, I do think it's the best segment in here out of a movie that's a very, very mixed bag. There are a lot of times in the VHS franchise that I think Shudder's improved upon in recent years since they bought the rights, or at least they made sequels, whatever you want to call it, where I think that the ball gets dropped too often on certain shorts, that the ending can be a little bit too much to try to be excessive, to try to be shocking. And I think the shock value kind of ruins a lot of these shorts, whereas the experiment or whatever's happening in a short, especially in this movie, it's kind of ruined by the time you get to those endings. So the first real story we have in here, I also really enjoyed. For the longest time, I would have said, since last year at least, that this would have been my favorite segment, but I do think that wraparound story is better. This short is about a group of friends going to a lake. Some of them are really close and really good friends, some are not. And you kind of have like this budding 80s romance story in there that gets demolished out of nowhere when this group of teenagers, young adults, whatever, are on a boat in this lake, and they begin to get shot at by a sniper. And it is bloody, it is gory, and I'm going to tell you, it's pretty awesome. Even my wife was watching this particular scene. She does not like blood. She does not like horror, as many of you know. So that showed a lot to me. However, the twist by the end of this one is not just over. It actually ties into a story later on. I really like how they approach that. I think it actually works way better with how it ties into something later on. If it had ended the way I thought it was ending in this short, in this particular portion of the movie in the beginning, I would have been pissed. But for what we got there, it was really well made, man. So anyway, moving along to the next short, I have it written down here. It is one about basically an earthquake. I think it was in Mexico, if I believe, because everybody was speaking Spanish. Some kind of earthquake. But a lot of this is basically a rescue team going into the rubble of underground destroyed buildings, saving some people and trying to get them out. I think some of them worked for like a newscast or something. I was actually on my phone during this a little bit, this particular segment, so I missed out on a few details. Forgive me for that. But basically, They're going in to rescue them, and I thought this was really cool. This didn't have to be some crazy supernatural thing, and sadly it goes that direction by the end of it. I don't really like that. I like when it was just the earthquake and the claustrophobia. I thought all of that was super effective, and then it just shits the bed to try to shock you on something. I gotta say though, out of all of these segments, I think most of them, if not all of them, were filmed on some kind of video format. I don't really know how or why, but they did that. It was cool. I liked it. But I gotta say, this particular segment, with all the dust and rubble and rock and claustrophobia, it looks like real found footage from the 80s. It's very impressive to me. I really, really dig it. Very good segment until that ending, and it really, really drops the ball. This was the introduction to me of when the horrible CGI was going to come into the movie. This was the first bad mistake of that. But moving along to the next segment, we actually have a chick who does performance art, and I think this segment is called like Techno God or God of Death or something like that. Basically, if you've ever seen these pretentious scumbags, they go to performance art centers, they do it at their schools. In this case, it's a very small audience watching this woman put on this suit and use what's called VR for the first time ever. She puts this goofy looking helmet on, she puts some goofy looking gloves on, and she claims that since we have technology now, that there's no point to believe in our gods and whatever that we have as humanity. So she's going to plug a microphone into this VR world. And apparently this VR headset's a little bit different. This whole outfit and everything, if you see a cup in this, as this one example is used in the movie, if you see a cup in this VR world, this video game world, and you go to pick it up, you can actually feel it in your hand and maybe even bring it into our reality. We're not really sure how that works, but it's kind of stupid. Again, does it sound too sci-fi? It is. Performance art students are not smart enough to do some shit like this, or to create something like this. But anyway, she basically gets in there, uses her microphone to begin to chant and moan sexually and shit into this microphone, into this digital Tron-looking world to try to figure out if a god or something of any kind, from any part of humanity, would reach out through that. And she gets more than she bargained for when something does finally respond. And I will say, I fucking hate this segment. It's so boring, it's so obnoxious. The editing back and forth between her moaning into microphones and shit, or making, crow cawing noises, all of that stuff, it just gets so annoying and so old so quickly that I had to start fast forwarding. And I'd already seen the film. I've seen it like twice or 3 times now. I had to fast forward through this part this time because I just can't handle it. It's so fucking irritating and annoying. But I can't stand it. It's not like there's a very good amount of tension built or anything. And then the encounter that she does have with something in this Tron-like world that I talked about is fully CGI, and it looks like shit. It doesn't matter if we're filming to make this be a 1980s thing. I don't know who thought that the entity she encounters was a good idea. You need to be fired. Director, writer, anybody. I think it was the same person for this. You should have been fired for doing this choice because it was bad. But I will say this. The very ending and what happens to this broad, this weirdo performance art chick, number one, is the same thing that should happen to all these weirdo performance arts kids. But number two, it was mortifying to watch. Very bloody. Probably one of the most shocking deaths I've ever seen in VHS as a franchise, or movies for that matter. I thought it was horrific, especially what happens with her helmet. Jesus, dude, I cannot get that image out of my head. So anyway, bad segment. Very bad segment. Easily, I would say, the worst of this entire movie. And then you have kind of the next short, I think it was this next film here, this next short, that was picking up on a family, on one girl's Sweet 16 party. And this kind of ties back to the lake story I talked about earlier. I'm not going to tell you too much, I don't want to spoil too much, but this family are kind of, they all get along. There's one cousin this Sweet 16 girl doesn't like, and they kind of have a bickering and bantering. I thought there was a really good joke in here, by the way, because he's looking at the camera she's holding, and he says, "Beta," because Beta and VHS. I thought that was kind of neat. Very clever. Very clever. I enjoyed that. That little story there was okay. It was very much just okay to me. Whatever. And it kind of ties into Scott Derrickson's last little short film he does at the end of the movie before we wrap around again to the finale with the David Bruckner story I was telling you about with the weird alien thing. Now, the Scott Derrickson story basically is about... essentially, it's about a cop who apparently saw a murder before that was very brutal, and he's seen it in a tape or something that he was sent in the mail, and he's not really sure what it is. The tape is very art house, very creepy. It's from the POV of a killer breaking into people's houses and brutally murdering them. And he's not really sure, how have I seen this before? He realizes it's on some kind of videotape that was sent anonymously through the mail to the police station, and he begins to investigate whoever this might be, trying to figure out how to track this killer, number one. Number two, trying to figure out if it's actually real, even though he's finding the dead body right now. But the murder could not have been committed a week ago when the tape was sent to him. It was just committed within a few hours of him showing up at this crime scene, whatever. And basically, this sends us down this entire rabbit hole about dreams being recorded and a goth teenager that looks like the guy from Superbad. It's not a very good segment, but it's one of the better ones in this movie. Definitely not one of the best ones in VHS as a franchise, definitely not one of the best shorts in horror in general, but this one was kind of neat for what it wanted to do. And then we wrap around to the David Bruckner story that, like I said, ends in a fun way, but kind of a stupid comedic way that I thought was terrible. But it made me laugh more this time than it did the first couple of times I saw this movie. I'm a huge VHS fan. I typically defend these films more than any series out there nowadays because I think it gets unfairly hated upon. But I think Shudder's really saved this franchise. But out of the more recent movies, I think this is the weakest one. Between 94, 99, and this, I think this is the easily weakest one out there. Mostly the acting, I would say, is pretty good from every single short, except for the performance art story. I don't really blame the actress for that, but it's really the overall writing and execution of that short. There's a lot of cool stuff, but a lot of the writing is bad because of the ending of a lot of these shorts that should not have gone as supernatural as they did. It's what I'm worried about with this new VHS Beyond movie this year, the 2024 Shudder movie. I hope they don't go bad, but there's a good chance they could. But overall, I think it has a lot of good stuff in here when we have music, especially during that Scott Derrickson short, whatever you want to call it. That was pretty excellent. Those video clips of the guy breaking into people's houses and killing them, the sound effects, the way that's executed with the music and the sound is so intense and scary. It's what Skinamarink should have been, in my opinion, even though it's not identical in story or subject. But the way it was done was so much better than something like Skinamarink. Say all you will about a budget, I don't care, it's true. Anyway, when it comes to VHS 85, it's a cool idea, it's filled with good concepts, it's just kind of like a movie version of those really shitty horror collections of random authors you'd buy. These short story compilations that are just shit. They're themed, and they're usually terrible. That's why I don't read them anymore. That's why I really don't read much of anything anymore, because of how much of a letdown those can be. VHS, if it ever gets canceled, it should turn into a book series. You know, I think it would really succeed as that too for people like me. I think you could do more too. Anyway, VHS 85, if I had to rate this really cool little film that I enjoy, I think more than most people, I think most people out there, including you watching this as a fan on my channel, you probably won't like this as much as I do. You'll probably actually hate it, to be honest. I thought it was mostly well made. I thought it had some good stuff in here, some good concepts. If you're a hardcore VHS fan, I think it's worth your time. Otherwise, it's not going to convert you to being a fan. I actually think 94 and 99 had a better chance of doing that. But if I had to rate this one on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give it like a very meandering 3 out of 5 stars. It's really not that good. Really not that memorable, to be honest with you. So take that any way you will. Anyway, have you seen VHS 85 or the previous Shudder VHS films? What do you think about those? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the whole franchise. And are you excited for the new one, Beyond, this year on Shudder? I can't wait for that, dude. I love VHS. I'm so glad we're getting more of these now. If it weren't for Shudder, we would have not had the saving of this series, as I call it. So anyway, what do you think about all this stuff and this movie down below? Let me know what you think about it. How would you rate them out, rank them out, all of that. Thank you all. God bless you again, and goodbye.